Webflow outputs code that's nice and clean. Now let's build daily interaction number 19. Hey, what's up everyone? John with WebDev for you, and welcome to the Daily Interaction series, where every weekday we build a new interaction or animation in Webflow. Today we're going to be building a full screen menu with a panel reveal on click. So here, if I click on the menu trigger, right over here, we see the menu flies in, and we have the menu items, and we have this image show up. So it's a really fun menu, and it can make for a really nice menu for your website. All right, looks good. So this was actually inspired by this website here, designcanada.com. They have a bit more going on with their menu here, but it's the same idea where the panels come in to reveal the menu. And they have a few more menu items and an animation here. But yeah, it's a really nice website. So this inspired me to create a menu like this in Webflow. All right, looks good. So yeah, this is what we will be building today. To view more daily interactions and premium content, visit webdevforyou.com. Also, be sure to subscribe below to receive a notification every time there is a new daily interaction. Okay, so here I have a blank Webflow project, and we'll start with the daily interaction class naming convention. So it's the daily interaction number, so today is 19, and then the element. So every element on this site will have a D-19 in front of it, and this is for consistency purposes and so that we know we're working with daily interaction number 19. So first we're going to build out all the elements for the menu, and then we're going to add the interaction. So the first thing I'm going to do here is add an element. I'm going to add a section, and I'm going to give this section the class name D-19 section. And I'm going to give it a height of 100 VH, so it spans the full height of the viewport, and it will be the full width as well. Then for the background, I'll give it a background color of black, and I'll give it a display setting of flex, justify start, and align center. And this will be a bit more evident as we go through this tutorial as to why I'm setting these options here. And for this, I'm also going to set a position of relative because we are going to have an absolute position div inside of this section. And I want it to be relative to the section and not relative to some other parent element like the body. So by setting it to relative, anything inside of it will be relative to it. All right, so there we have the section. The next thing I'm going to add is the lines. So if we go to the demo, we see this website has lines going down, and it's split into 6 different sections. So here for the site, I'll go to the navigator, and inside of the section, I'm going to add a div block. So I'll add an element. I'll add a div block, and I'll give this div block the class name D-19 lines wrapper. So the lines are going to go inside of this div block. So for this, I'm going to give it a position of absolute. So this is that absolute div that I was talking about. So it's going to be relative to the section and not relative to the body because the section has a position of relative. All right, so here for the lines wrapper, I'll set it to absolute and set it to full so it fills the entire section. And then for the display setting, I'm going to set it to flex, and I'm going to say justify start and align stretch. So by setting it to align stretch, we can set its children elements to be the same height as this wrapper. All right, so that's all I need to do there. Now we're going to add 6 div blocks inside of this lines wrapper. So in the navigator, so we have the section, we have the lines wrapper. So I'm going to add an element. I'm going to add a div block, and it gets placed in the lines wrapper, and I'm going to give it the class name D-19. Let's call it lines, and I'm going to set this div block to expand here. It is now a flex item because its parent element has a display setting of flex, so this element becomes a flex item. So I can set it to expand so it fills the entire parent element, and it's also the same height as the parent element because Yeah, the lines wrapper has a display setting of flex, and it's align stretched. So it fills the height, and by setting it to expand, it also fills the width. So it's filling the entire parent element. So for this as well, I want to, copy it 6 times now. So because it's set to expand, it's set to fill all the available width. So if I copy this 6 times, we're going to have 6 div blocks, all with the same width. So here I'll hit Command C to copy, and then I'll paste. I'll paste in the lines. I can select the lines wrapper, so let me undo that. So select lines wrapper, and then paste till I have 6 blocks. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all set to expand, so they're trying to fill the available space, and that's why we have 6 equal blocks here. All right, looks good. So the next thing I want to do for these lines is add a right border. So they're actually div blocks, but I'm calling them lines because we're going to add a right border to create that line effect. So here for the lines, I'm going to go down to border, and I'm going to select here the right border. So I'll select it here. Then I'll add a solid border with a width of 1, and I'll change the color to white and add an opacity of 20%. So the color is white with an opacity of 20%, and we applied it to the right side of the div block. So now if I preview, we have subtle lines visible here within the site. Hopefully you can see that within the video. They are a bit light, but it has a nice effect for the site. And it'll be nice when the blocks come in. It almost looks like they're joining into the lines to create this interesting effect. All right, so there we have the lines. So the next thing we'll do is add the menu wrapper. So the menu wrapper is going to be fixed, okay? So the reason I'm adding the lines here, if we added another section, I could have the lines kind of go into that section, so the lines go through the entire site, but it is just one section with, filling the width of the viewport and the height. So yeah, this is okay for now, but yeah, the lines are going to be outside of the menu wrapper. And also because this will make sense a bit later, but later on we're going to hide the menu wrapper. So we don't want to hide the lines as well. So I don't want the lines wrapper inside of the menu wrapper. Okay, so here for the section, I'm going to add another div block. So I'll add an element, I'll add a div block, and I'll call this D-19 menu wrapper. Okay, so now we're going to place things inside of the menu wrapper. And for this, I'm going to set a position of fixed and full. Okay, and it is going to be relative to the section, so it's going to be full width and full height of the viewport. And the reason I'm setting it to fixed is that if we had scrolling to the site, I want the user to be able to access the menu anywhere they are on the website. So by setting it to fixed, if the site has some scrolling and they scroll to the bottom, that menu can still appear within the viewport of the browser. Okay, looks good. So we have the menu wrapper, it's fixed. And for this, that's all I have to do there actually. I don't have to set a display setting because we're going to add some other wrappers inside of this wrapper. Okay, so here I'll click on Navigator. And for the menu wrapper, I'm going to add a div block. So I'll add an element, I'll add a div block, and I'll call this D-19 blocks wrapper. Okay, so now we're going to add the blocks. And for this, I'm going to set it to a position of absolute and full. And I'm also going to set a display setting of flex and justify start and align stretch. So again, we're going to do the same thing we did for the lines or the div blocks that had the line applied to it, because we're going to have 6 blocks. So we want it to be justify start and align stretch. So now inside of the blocks wrapper, I'm going to add a div block, add element, add a div block. And for this, I'm going to give it the class name D-19 block. And I'm going to set it to expand. Same thing we did with the first lines, set it to expand, then go into the navigator and just copy this, and inside the blocks wrapper, paste until I have 6 blocks. Actually this should be D-19 block wrapper. Okay, so I know it could be a little confusing here. So it's block wrapper. So we have the blocks, the blocks wrapper, and then we have the block wrapper. So the blocks wrapper contains all of the blocks, And the reason why we're calling these individual blocks a block wrapper is because we're now going to place a block inside of it. Okay, so if you followed along with some of the block reveal effects, this will be a bit more clear, but I'll continue here, and hopefully this becomes a bit more clear as I go along. So here inside of for the D-19 block wrapper, we're going to give it an overflow of hidden, so anything outside of these div blocks won't be visible, and this will allow us to create that panel reveal effect because we're going to place a div block inside of it and have it move in and out. Okay, and I also want to set a position of relative for the block wrapper because we are going to have an absolute position div inside of it, and I want it to be relative to this block wrapper and not relative to some other parent element. So by setting it to relative, anything inside of it will be relative to it. And that's it. Okay, so so we added the blocks wrapper. It's inside the menu wrapper. The blocks wrapper, it has a flex of align start and stretch. And then we added, so here in the flex, set a display setting of justify start and align stretch. And then we added 6 block wrappers. So this one's singular and this one's plural. So we added 6 block wrappers, gave it a position of relative, and copied it 6 times, and it has a flex item setting of expand, so it fills the available space. Okay, so we have 6 blocks, and now we want to add a div block inside of each one of these. So I'll select the block wrapper, add an element, add a div block, and I'll give it the class name D-19 block. Okay, so this will be the actual block, and for this I'm going to set it to a position of absolute and full, so it fills the entire block wrapper. And then I'll give it a background color of white. Okay, so there we have the block, and now I can copy this block and paste it into the other block wrappers. So I'll hit Command C to copy, and in the designer, just select the block wrapper and paste. Okay, so now we have 6 blocks inside of each block wrapper, and this is going to allow us to move the block in and out. So the block wrapper has an overflow of hidden, so we won't see the block move in and out of the block wrapper. It'll just have that nice panel reveal effect. Okay, so so far so good. So the next thing we want to do is we want to add a text wrapper inside of the menu wrapper. So here I'll select menu wrapper because for the text wrapper, these link blocks we're going to put in a text wrapper. So let me go into Webflow, into the site, and select menu wrapper. Then I'll add a div block, and I'll call this div block D-19 text wrapper. Okay, and for this, I'm going to set it to a position of, or actually, let me give it a width and height of 50% by 50%. And let me set the menu wrapper flex setting. So here for the menu wrapper, I'll give it a display setting of justify start and align center. So this will place that text wrapper in the center. So now it's starting here at the left, and it's in the center. And it has that setting applied to it because we just applied the flex setting to the menu wrapper of justify start and align center. Okay, so there we have the text wrapper. I do want to move it over to the right. I'm going to move it, let's see what the value is here. 16.666%. Because 6, or actually not the width, let me undo that. Let me set the width to 50%. We want to give it a left margin of 16.666%. Okay, so the reason we're doing that is because 100 divided by 6 is 16.6666, and I want this, 16.66 repeating, and I want this text wrapper to start at the second block. So by moving it 16.666 repeating to the right, it starts at the second block. Okay, so that gives it the effect. So when I start, it looks like these texts are lining up. We can't see the line here, but just for design purposes, it looks like it's lining up with the second block. Okay, all right, looks good. So let's go back in here. So we have the text wrapper, and for this, I'm going to give it a display setting of flex. I'm going to set it to vertical. Justify start is okay, and align stretch is okay. So now I'm going to add a link block inside of this text wrapper. So I'll select the text wrapper, I'll add an element, I'll add a link block, and I'll give it the class name d-19 link block. Okay, so the reason we're adding a link block inside of the text wrapper is because we want to link, we want to place text inside of the link block and have it link out to something. So like a URL, a page section, an email, telephone number, or a file. Okay, so there we have the link block. I'm going to give it a display setting of justify center and align center so that the text is in the center of this link block. And actually justify start. We're going to start the text at the beginning of the link block. So now I'm going to copy this link block 3 times. So I'll hit Command C and just paste. There we go. So we have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 link blocks. Okay, so now I'm going to add some text inside of the link block. So with the link block selected, I'll add an element. I'll add a text block. So let me scroll up here. Yeah, text block. And I'll give this a position of relative for the text block. Give it the class name d-19 menu item text. So I'm giving it a position of relative so it comes to the front so we can see this text inside of it. So now let's style the text a bit. So I'll say for typography, I'll say circular bold. I'll give it a font weight of bold, set it to a color of this blue, and give it a font size. Let me rename the text inside of here. So I'll say designer or designers. And yeah, so we also notice it has an underline, and that's because the text is in a link block. So Webflow automatically gives it that hyperlink styling and it adds the underline to it. So to remove it, let's just go back into the navigator, select link block, and I will go to typography and set it to none for the underline. So the underline is removed, and now I'll go back to the menu item text and we'll style it a bit more. So let's make that text even a bit bigger, something like 54. Might be a bit big, but just for demonstration purposes. And then the line height, set it to something like 70. All right, so we have the link block, the text is inside of it and looks good. So now I'm going to copy this menu item text and let me collapse it so I can see it a bit better. So we have this menu item text, so I'm just going to copy and paste it inside of the other 3 link blocks. So I'll double click, so I'll say designers, musicians, and photographers. Photographers, okay. And I'm going to add some margin to the link blocks so there's a bit more space. So I'll hold down Alt and add some top and bottom margin. Okay, so there's a little bit of space in between them. So maybe something like 10. All right, so there we have the menu items. I can click on them and it looks good. So yeah, let me see here. Yeah, link block, musician. Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so we have the text and it's looking good. So the next thing I want to do is add this image here on the right. So to do that, let's select let me close this here. Let's select the menu wrapper and I'll add a div block inside the menu wrapper and I'll give it the class name d-19 bg wrapper. Okay, and for this, I'm going to give it a position of absolute and going to set it to the right. So it goes to the right, and then I'll give it a width of 33.333 repeating percent. Yeah, because 2 blocks is 33.333%, and I want it to span across 2 blocks there. Okay, looks good. And for this, I'm also going to set an overflow of hidden, so we can have that reveal effect for the image. Then inside of the BG wrapper, I'm going to add another div block, and this is going to be d-19 BG image. Okay, so we're going to place the image in here. For this, I'm going to give it, also for the BG wrapper, let's make sure it has a position of oh no, it's absolute, never mind. So here I'll select BG image, and I'll give it a position of absolute and full. Okay, so it fills the entire wrapper. And then for the image, I'll select add a background image. I'll choose an image and I'll select this image here, give it a position of cover and center, or actually I'm going to put it to the left. Yeah, that looks better. And I don't need it to be tiled, so I'll just select the X here to not have it be tiled. All right, looks good. So I think we have everything we need. Also for the link block, I want to set it to an overflow, or actually the text wrapper, I'm going to set it to an overflow of hidden, okay? Because we are going to move the link block in and out of this text wrapper. All right, so hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions about anything I just went over, definitely let me know in the comment section below or in the forum section for this video. All right, so we have all the elements. Now we can add the interaction. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna add, actually we need to do one more thing. We need to add the menu trigger. So inside of the section, I'm going to add an element. I'm gonna add a div block, and we can see it gets placed on the left here. I'm gonna give it the class name d-19 menu trigger, and I'm gonna give it a width and height of 50 pixels by 50 pixels. Set the background to blue, and set the position to relative, so it comes to the front. And I can also play with the z-index if it's not in the front. Here I can add a higher z-index value so it comes more to the front, but by setting it to relative, it automatically comes to the front there. And then for the radius, I'm going to set it to 50%, so it becomes a full circle. To make a square a complete circle, just set the border radius to 50%, or half the pixels of the square, and that creates a perfect circle. Okay, and then I'll add some margin to the left, maybe like 40 pixels for the menu trigger. And there we go. So when we click on this button here, we're gonna have the interaction occur. Okay, yeah, so far so good. All right, now the next thing we're gonna do is add the interaction. So when I click on the menu trigger, so I'll select it here, I'm going to go into interactions, and here for element trigger, I'm going to click the plus, and I'm going to say mouse click or tap. So when we click or tap on the menu trigger, we're going to start an animation, and I'm going to add a new timed animation, and here I'm going to give it the class name or the name d-19 first click. So this is what happens when we first click on the menu trigger. Okay, so for this, I want to set all the elements to the left, okay? So the first thing I'll do is select the blocks. So in the menu wrapper, I'm going to select the block here, because we're going to move the block to the left. So I'll select d-19 block, and let me collapse that so it's a bit nicer. Yeah, so we have d-19 block here. And then I'll go into interactions. I'll add a new timed action. I'll say move, and I'll move it on the X horizontally, negative 100%. So it moves that block all the way to the left, and I want it to be the initial state. So I'm going to set it as the initial state by clicking next to timing and clicking this toggle. And I want it to occur for all of the blocks. So I'll select the block, and I want to affect any element that has the class d-19 block. So I'll select it here. Instead of selected element, I'll say class, and now all the blocks move to the left. Okay, and they're set as the initial state, and perfect. So if I preview, we don't see the blocks. All right, so now I want to move the link blocks to the left as well. So I'll collapse this, and I'll select the menu wrapper, go into the text wrapper, select the link block here, and I'll say move negative 100%, and set it as the initial state. Yeah, right there, set it as the initial state. Select the second link block, move negative 100%, and set it as the initial state. And the third block will move negative 100% and set it as the initial state. Okay, yeah, and then for the background image, I'll select it. Here I can select it in the designer or in the navigator, select BG image, and I'll move negative 100%. Okay, and set it as the initial state, and perfect. So the last thing we need to do is set the menu wrapper. This entire menu wrapper, we need to set it to a display setting of hide. So here I'll select, add a new timed action, I'll select hide show, and here I'll say display none. And then I'll set it as the initial state. So the reason we're hiding it here at the end is because even though the menu is hidden, if we had elements behind the menu, we wouldn't be able to select them because the menu is still in front. So yeah, even though elements inside of it are not visible, that menu is still blocking elements behind it. So by setting it to hide, the user can still interact with the elements on the site, but but then once the menu comes in, we'll have it show so that they'll be able to see the menu. All right. So now that we have all the initial states set up, let's add the interaction of having everything come in. So the first thing I want to occur is I want this menu to show. So here I'll click and I'll say hide show, and let me make sure I have the menu wrapper selected. So because we've already used the elements here in the timed action, we can select it here. So here for the menu wrapper, I'll select it and I'll say hide show, and I'll say display flex because the menu had a display setting of flex. So I'll set it to display flex. So it comes back in, and then we can have the blocks come in. So the block is going to move. So I selected the block up here, set it to move, and it's going to move back to 0% on the X. I'm going to add an easing of ease out expo, and a duration of 0.5 is okay. I'm going to add a delay of 0.1, and I'm going to, that's all set there. I'll add a delay of 0.1, and then I'll set, it's going to affect the class, so any elements with this class. So now if I preview and I click, those blocks come in. Perfect. So the next thing I want to occur is I want each link block to come in, so I'll select it. And actually for the block, I don't want a delay. I'm going to set the delay to 0. Then I'll select the link block. The first link block, I'll say move it to 0%. 0. Let's see here, 0%. 0%, there we go. And I'll add a delay or start it with the previous interaction. So I'll click, hold, and drag, place on top of the block. And I'll give it an easing of ease out expo, duration of 0.5, and a delay of 0.1. Okay, so now I'll select the second block. I'll say move, or the second link block, say move, set it to 0%. And I selected the third link block, so let me go back up here. Select the second link block, say move to 0%, and start it with the previous timed action. Set an easing of ease out expo and a delay of 0.2. Then I'll select the third link block. I'll say move, and we'll set it to 0% on the X so it comes back to its original position. I'll start it with the previous timed actions. By click, holding, and dragging, I'll set it to ease out expo, and I'll add a delay of 0.3. So they have that staggered effect for the menu items. So I'll preview. When I click, the blocks come in and the menu items come in as well. So I'll click, and perfect. All right, so now we want the image to come in. So up here, I'll select BG image, and I'll say move, and I'll say 0% on the X. And here I'll add an easing of ease out expo. I'll start it with the other ones by click, holding, and dragging, and I'll add a delay of 0.2. Duration of 0.5 is okay. So there we go. I click, and perfect. So that there we have the interaction when it comes in. So let me preview again, click, and perfect. It looks good. So the last thing we need to do here is add the second click. So when we click again, we want that menu to go back, or have the animations go in reverse, and then we'll hide the menu. So here I'm going to close this, and on second click, I'm going to start an animation. I'm going to duplicate the first click here by clicking on these 3 dots. And here I'll select D-19, first click, 2, select it, and I'll rename it here to D-19 second click. Here I'm going to delete all the initial states because we don't need an initial state for the second click because we already applied it to the first click. So I'll just delete there, and perfect. So now I'm just going to move things around. So for the reverse animation, I want all the menu items to go back first, and the image, and then the blocks, and then hide the menu. So for the link blocks, I'm just going to click, hold, and drag, and place them at the beginning. So yeah, click, holding, dragging, placing there at the beginning. And then for the delay, for the first one, I'm going to say 0. For the second one, I'm going to say 0.1. And for the third one, or actually, let's start them all at the same time. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag and place them on top of each other. So for the second one, I'll add a delay of 0.1. The third one, I'll add a delay of 0.2. Okay, so the link blocks are going to move in a staggered motion first. Then we're going to have the image. So I'll place the image right up here with the blocks. Then we're going to have the image and the blocks move move to the left. So yeah, there we have the image. I'm going to add a delay of 0.3 for the image, and then we're going to have the block as well. And the block has a delay of 0.3. So first the link blocks are going to move to the left, then the background image and the blocks are going to move to the left as well. So here we just need to change the values. So for the link block, instead of 0, we're going to say negative 100%. So it moves to the left, negative 100%, and negative 100%. Then the background image as well, negative 100%, and the blocks, negative 100% on the X. And then for the menu wrapper, instead of a display setting of flex, we're going to say none. So we don't see the menu wrapper, and we can interact with elements on the site. So now if I preview, so I click once, the menu opens, I click again, the menu closes. And that's it. So that's how we create a full screen menu with a panel reveal effect on click. Looks good. I can publish it. Yeah, so I published 2 selected domains and preview. And yeah, I click and there we go. So let me see if I can demonstrate why we hid and why we hide the menu and then show it. So here I'm going to go into the section. I'm going to add a text block. And there we have the text block, and I'll give it the class name D-19. Or actually, let's add a heading. So let me delete this text block, go back into section, add an element. I'll add a heading, and I'll say, D-19 heading. I'll give it, change the styling a bit, and set it to white. Okay, so now if I preview, we have the heading. And let me see here. Let me see if I remove the line wrapper for a second. Okay, so we want to place the heading. Let me show the line wrapper. And let me give the heading a position of relative. So there we have the heading. So we see we can select it. We can select it. Well, the menu wrapper would have to be in front of the text as well. So we can add a Z index of something really high to the menu wrapper and then to the menu trigger. Hopefully this isn't getting confusing. It might be, but basically what I want to demonstrate. So there we have the menu, and notice we can select the text, and that's because we hid the menu, right? So initially the menu wrapper isn't visible, so we can select elements on the site, and if we click, the menu comes in, and then we hide the menu again. If I were to go into the interaction, and if I were to remove the hide show, like just delete the hide show here, and I try to highlight this text, notice we can't interact with this text on the site. And if we had buttons and things like that, we wouldn't be able to interact with it, because even though we can't see the elements inside the menu wrapper, that menu wrapper is still blocking the site. It's still in front and blocking elements behind it. So that's why we need to add. So let me just undo it here. That's why we need to hide the menu wrapper initially, and then bring it back. Bring it back first, and then add all the interactions. And then when we close the menu, we need to hide the menu wrapper at the end as well. So we're applying the hide show to the menu wrapper. So now I can interact with it because we're hiding and showing the menu wrapper. I can click. Now the menu wrapper is shown and the interactions occur. Then when I click again, the interactions occur, and we hide the menu wrapper so we can interact with the elements again. Okay, so I just wanted to cover that concept really quick. Hopefully that all made sense. The last thing I'll do, I know this video is getting kind of long, But yeah, let me go into styles. Let's just add a quick hover state to these this text. So I'll select it, and here for the states, I'll select hover, and I'll just change the color to this magenta color. And that's it. I could add some transition to it, but yeah, by going into the normal state and adding a transition, but I like it just having that quick change of color for the text. So I'll click, and bam, there we go. I can link this out to anything. Yeah, I can go into here, go into element settings, or I have to select the link block here. I can link out the link block to anything here, to a site, another page, and things like that. Okay, so yeah, that's it for this video tutorial. Probably one of the longer ones, but it is a really interesting effect. It can make for a really nice menu on your website. It was inspired by designcanada.com. Really cool menu. Yeah, so that's the power of Webflow. You can really create these really amazing menus. Yeah, just with a few interactions and adding the elements there. All right, perfect. Yeah, so this was a lot of fun. Really excited to be sharing this with you. And yeah, so hopefully that all made sense. If you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comment section below or in the forum section for this video. I did add this button here, just a quick rotation. But yeah, that's just a little button. If you want me to cover this, let me know. It's quite simple. You just add a few div blocks inside of a wrapper, kind of add a radius to the wrapper, and then have it rotate with the interaction as well. All right, perfect. So looks good. So that is it for daily interaction number 19. Yeah, creating a full screen menu with a panel reveal effect. To view more daily interactions and premium content, visit webdevforyou.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next daily interaction.